Coming up in the news tonight, the finance minister outlining the plan to facilitate long-term economic recovery. It's day one of inter-island travel, and local churches are now back in business. The Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, starts now.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, Northern Edition.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening, all. I'm Megan Shepard. Thank you so much for tuning in. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Honourable K. Peter Turnquest, opening the 2020-2021 budget debate in the House of Assembly this morning. The Finance Minister reiterated that the coronavirus pandemic will have a significant impact on the country's financial future. He says going forward, attention will be given to fiscal consolidation through revenue enhancement and expenditure containment. Italia Hall has our top story.
The Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Honourable K. Peter Turnquest, focused on the country's fiscal affairs as well as the government's accelerated reforms to facilitate long-term economic growth. To date, he says the government has borrowed some $977 million.
The spending priorities of this administration have always been clear. In fact, on the new budget website, you can click a link to view the 2018-19 budget, the 2019-20 budget, and this new 2020-2021 budget. Archived for all to see is a page called Our Priorities, which shows the main spending priorities in each budget over the past 3 years.
The Finance Minister outlining the government's expenditure and says significant investments have been made in several sectors across the country, including education, which is now free for many Bahamians.
We have increased our allocations toward inclusive education by some $5.1 million. In digitization, this administration solidified its commitment to the digitization of government processes by creating an entire department to focus solely on these initiatives. Since its establishment, we have allocated nearly $20 million towards our digitization efforts.
Turnquest also giving an update on the expenditure for Hurricane Dorian.
To date, we have spent for recurrent and capital transactions nearly $80 million towards hurricane restoration and rebuilding efforts, including $6 million to support water restoration efforts in Abaco, losing my voice now, and a portion of the $90 million allocated to restore electricity on Abaco. In addition to these programs, we managed to pay off approximately $230.1 million in arrears since fiscal year 2018-2019, leaving only $85.5 million left to pay in these old bills.
The special economic recovery benefits have been extended until December 2020 for Abaco and Grand Bahama. Some of these benefits include the duty-free import of materials, fixtures, furniture, vehicles, and equipment for approved commercial projects and residential construction, business license waivers for all new businesses and existing businesses that retain at least 60% of their employment level pre-Dorian.
In addition, we have allocated funding of some $66 million towards continued restoration efforts. Specifically, some $46 million is provisioned for the continued restoration of Abaco, $4.7 million for Grand Bahama, and another $15 million for disaster management, which includes efforts by the new Ministry of Disaster Preparedness, Management and Reconstruction.
The Finance Minister says the government will continue to rebuild critical infrastructure on Grand Bahama.
The Prime Minister spoke to this last week, indicating that a new hospital for Grand Bahama is in the pipeline. However, as a new hospital can take up to 3 years to construct, we will continue upgrades and renovations to the Rand Memorial Hospital in the near term until construction can begin on the new facility.
The Finance Minister says school and road repairs will also continue on the island. Italia Hall, ZNS Network News.
Now, Member of Parliament for the Exumas and Ragged Island and the Opposition Shadow Minister of Finance, Chester Cooper, making his contribution to the 2020-2021 fiscal budget in Parliament this afternoon. Cooper calling the budget disappointing and uninspiring. Cooper says that the budget should allocate borrowing not simply to pay bills, but rather to transform the economy.
You've borrowed more than $3 billion in 3 years. You have very little to show for it. You will likely exceed borrowing $5 billion in 5 years. Big borrowing should equate to big things. We need a plan that grows the economy by 5 to 8%. That is not bad in and of itself. But it should be seen as an investment of the people's money.
Cooper argues that more focus should be put on growing the Bahamian economy.
Grow the economy. Grow the economy. How many times you've heard me say that? Remember that? We need an economic growth plan. We need an economic growth czar. We need to grow the economy. We're not hearing enough vision. We're not hearing enough plan. We're not hearing enough strategy. Remember that? That's what I'm talking about.
Domestic travel resuming today from the Grand Bahama International Airport. Hours of operations are between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. daily. The Grand Bahama Airport Company says that various protocols have been put in place to minimize and mitigate against the spread of the COVID-19 virus. These include enhanced cleaning and sanitization along with physical distancing. Additionally, employees are being trained on newly enhanced protocols, adhering to the safety guidelines of the Ministry of Health. Our ZNS News team visited the Grand Bahama International Airport this morning and observed that it was fairly busy. A few flights had already left for Abaco, New Providence, and Bimini. You may recall that last week, the Ministry of Tourism announced that as a part of the ongoing phased reopening of the country, domestic borders will be opened for regular domestic commercial flights and for domestic pleasure craft and yachts throughout the country. Passengers traveling from New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Bimini by aircraft, mailboat, or passenger ferry will be required to complete a standardized travel form and a standardized health form at the time of check-in. These short forms will be used to collect contact information and a COVID-19 risk assessment for health officials. Travelers should note that due to physical distancing protocols, the check-in process may take longer than usual. Travelers are advised to arrive early to check in. Worship services have also resumed here on Grand Bahama within sanctuaries or houses of worship. According to the emergency orders, meetings are to take place between 7 a.m. and 1 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays. And congregants are being advised to adhere to social distancing and strict health protocols. Our Rumiko Knowles went to several churches on the island this past Sunday.
Well, this is the day that the Lord has made, and those in the Christian faith are glad in it. The sound of praise and worship echoing throughout sanctuaries as churchgoers are now able to come together for in-sanctuary services. Entering his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise, the display screens at the St. John's Jubilee Cathedral welcomed congregants back. Bishop Godfrey Williams giving those in attendance an encouraging word.
After coming out of isolation, I want to prepare at least about 50 of you for the manifestation of isolation that you are about to receive.
Now at Calvary Temple Assemblies of God, hymns of faith could be heard throughout the sanctuary. Pastor Robert Lockhart says, after 9 long weeks, it's good to be back into the house of God.
David said, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. The writer of Hebrews says, forsake not the gathering of yourselves together. Jesus said, where 2 or 3 of you come together in my name, there I am in the midst of you. And that's how important it is to us as saints. We know that when we come together as believers, we cultivate the presence of the Lord. We provide strength and encouragement for one another. And it's just a human dynamic. We're social beings, and so being able to interact with each other in any setting is very important, especially when it comes to the the corporate worship of God.
Now, although permission was given to hold in-sanctuary services, some churches decided to continue gathering in their parking lots. Over at a Call to Holiness Ministries Agape House, the sound of car horns, praise, and worship could be heard as members assembled in their vehicles on the church grounds. Also praising in the parking lot were members of Revelation Faith Ministries in the back of town area. Bishop Sidney McIntosh says they wanted to ensure that they were adhering to the social distancing protocols that are in place.
I don't know in everybody else's case, but in our case, why we choose to have it outside is because this is our first service after the lockdown, after 9 weeks. So we were not certain of how many people would have been there or would not have been there, and we didn't want to exclude anybody. So we rather choose to go outside. Today is our first service, and which proved fruitful, because if we'd go inside, we wouldn't have been able to respect the social distance. And so that's what we wanted to kind of get an idea. And the whole thing is a phase. You want to take everything in phases. So with the church itself, we wanted to know how, what kind of capacity were coming out this morning, what kind of attendance would have been, so we could be able to better kind of know what to do for next week.
Rumiko Knowles, ZNS Network News.
Meantime, over in Abaco, electricity is being restored. Some communities have been without power since Monster Storm Dorian. Now, while some areas have been recently energized, others are expected to see some improvements in the weeks ahead. Jamila Mizik tells us more.
To date, supplies have been restored or systems have been re-energized in the following areas: North Abaco, South Abaco, and portions of the Marsh Harbor District. Re-energization of systems have been completed on Forest Drive in Murphytown from Friendship Church to Ben Curry Drive. Residents in the area who are prepared to receive supply should make application to the Ministry of Works for the needed inspections and provide BPL with a copy of the installation approvals once received so that supply can be made available. Cable tests were also completed between Guana Key, Scotland Key, and between Scotland Key and Manawar Key. Work in Sweetings Village has been delayed due to the arrival of the final components for this area. However, the equipment should be installed by Saturday, June 6th. Residents in this area should also be making final preparations and application to the Ministry of Works for necessary inspections. Treasure Key will be restored in sections, commencing with parts of the northern end, that is Ocean Boulevard, Madeira Park, Domi Villa, Buckingham Beach, starting June 11th. Murphytown, Forest Drive from Ben Curry Drive to CMI Church on June 12th, Pelican Shores also on June 12th. And as it relates to Manawar Key, temporary generating sites on Manawar Key will be brought online on June 6th. Murphytown Boulevard, Forest Drive Way to Zion Baptist Church on June 21st, Treasure Key Southern End starting June 23rd, Little Orchid completion of HV works and energization on August 3rd. Teams are preparing to commence installation of temporary generation on Guana Key, and as it relates to subsea cable replacements on Marsh Harbor, Matlo's Key to Manawar Key, they are awaiting arrival of the remaining equipment. For ZNS Network News, I'm Jamila Mizik.
Also from Abaco tonight, a 16-year-old male is dead following a traffic accident on that island. Police tell us that shortly before 10 p.m. last night, officers of the Cooperstown Police Station were called to a traffic accident on SC Boodle Highway, where they met the body of a male some distance in the bushes. Further reports are that the male, along with a female, were walking on SC Boodle Highway when the juvenile was struck by a silver Honda Accord vehicle traveling west on the highway. The victim landed some 8 feet in the bushes from the impact and died at the scene. The male driver of the vehicle fled the scene but eventually returned. He is assisting police with the investigation. Over in Bimini, a service of thanksgiving was held today for businesswoman Kim Johnson Roll, the country's first COVID-19 victim. Roll died on March 30th after she was airlifted to the nation's capital for medical care. The homegoing celebration was organized by Gateway Outreach Ministry. Rumiko Knowles has more.
The burial service for the late Kim Russell was streamed live on Facebook. The body of the country's first COVID-19 victim was laid to rest in a white and pink casket. Bimini resident Pastor Oral Ellis attended the ceremony. He says it was a sad day for Biminites.
It was a day that we were looking forward to for a long time. It's been several months since the passing of Kim Johnson Roll. And, due to the lockdown situation and the airport closure, family always want to be around family to say farewell to the loss of their loved one. And so it was a sad occasion, but it was one that we were anticipating for a long time.
Ellis says it was a beautiful ceremony filled with love and dedicated to a woman who was loved by everyone.
Germany is a tight-knit community, and so Kim was a well-loved person. She made her mark in church, she made her mark in business, and plus she made her mark with children, and she was a people's person. And so even though they have protocol, social distancing in place, and so therefore it would have been impossible to host the service at the church, and so it was a graveside funeral that attracted people that lined themselves all along the perimeters of the cemetery.
Some family members and friends were able to travel to pay their final respects, including Rose Brothers, Minister of Financial Services, Immigration, Trade and Industry, the Honorable Ellsworth Johnson, and Bimini's Member of Parliament, Pakeisha Parker Edgecombe.
I believe now the family now can rest knowing that they have brought closure to the matter. And so the family, I believe, is doing well. They've had time now to come to grips with Sister Kim's death, and now putting her underground and having the opportunity to have grieved and cried and express their sentiments of love towards her. Now they can pick up now and move on.
May her soul rest in peace. Ramiko Knowles, ZNS Network News.
My name is Pastor Letitia Gibson. I'm here to encourage you on the word faith today. As the Lord began to say to me, only those who faith are locked in Him will see His glory be revealed in their life, their family, and this nation. Hebrews 11:6 says, without faith in this season, it's impossible to please Him. For he that cometh to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him. God is calling us back to true faith. What is faith? Hebrews 11:1 tells us, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. As the Bahamas said, God is trying to come back to itself. God said it's not going to work relying on the back of man, but it's going to work putting faith in our daily walk. It's only through our faith and trust in God and His Word we will survive this Bahamas, coming back to a bigger and a stronger Bahamas. God is saying it's time to take His Word and make it our truth. What is truth? A fact or belief that is accepted. God is saying, no matter how things may seem and look, now is the time to climb higher in our faith. Don't look at what we can see to determine the plans for this Bahamas, said God. God is saying His plans are sure, His plans are true, but He needs we the people to cast our burdens on Him. Stop allowing the chaos that is going on in this Bahamas and the world to define our faith and our trust in God. The name of the Lord is our strong tower. The righteous run into it, and we are safe. People of God, we are safe.
And coming up, the taxi union president says he is happy for the extension given to taxi drivers.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Dolly Madison, Freeport's original home center.
Dolly Madison Home Center is now open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. to serve your household needs. Ace Hardware, Whirlpool and GE Appliances, and more. Be sure to ask an associate for assistance if you don't see what you came for. Social distancing and masks are in full effect. And the good news is we will be moving to the former rooms to go in the front of the store as renovations are completed. Join us Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Come on down now.
This is a different kind of moment.
We cannot sit next to our peers or have family and friends embrace this moment. In this rapidly changing world,
We stayed focused.
we campaigned together, we celebrated together,
We are warriors.
Mulligans Restaurant Supply Store, where you can find all the essential products required by you or your catering companies, restaurants, and bars at the lowest prices. Their professional kitchen supplies, aluminum baking pan, foam products, paper and plastic products, cake boxes and boards in different sizes sold individually, sodas, juices and grocery items, seasonings, peanuts sold by the sack, commercial cleaning products, and also check out the wholesale and retail beers, wines, and spirits section. They're located on Yellow Pine Street. That's Mulligan's Restaurant and Supply Store.
Congratulations to our beautiful daughter, Kiari Elizabeth Cooper, 2020 graduation class of Tabernacle Baptist, from your proud parents, Pastor Naphtali and Sarah Cooper, brother Rashe and niece Kimeyer, and the Lord's House family.
We're so proud of you. The best is yet to come.
Congratulate your special graduate on ZNS with a television billboard to air on the Bahamas Tonight Northern Edition at 6:30 p.m. You can also share this momentous occasion with family and friends on the ZNS community page, channels 230 and 420. Call ZNS today and create special memories for your 2020 graduate.
Your number one news team covering the North. The Bahamas Tonight, Northern Edition.
Welcome back. Tonight, the president of the Grand Bahama Taxi Union is sharing some of the challenges that drivers are now facing within the industry due to Hurricane Dorian and now COVID-19. He also shares plans for the way forward once the country's borders are fully reopened. Italia Hall reports.
President of the Grand Bahama Taxi Union, Harold Curry, says after writing a letter sharing the challenges facing taxi drivers on Grand Bahama, the Minister of Transport and Local Government, the Honorable Renwood Wells, confirmed the suspension of the inspection process for license renewal for taxi cabs during the state of emergency. He also confirmed that there is a further extension of 60 days thereafter. Curry calls it a relief for many taxi drivers on the island as they continue to struggle.
Those people who can afford to license the cars, they can go ahead and license, but I know a lot of them cannot afford because we went through some major disasters here on the island. We went through Hurricane Dorian from September, and that Hurricane Dorian alone put a big blow on my drivers because what happened there, a lot of our drivers' cars were underwater, get flooded out. Some of them had to get new cars, some of them had to do house repairs and so forth, and it put a lot of strain, take most of their money from them. And out of that Hurricane Dorian, we went straight into this pandemic season, which is COVID-19, and that's another blow. And now we're going from that into another hurricane season. So these people really don't have no money. It's a good thing the government did give us a little unemployment benefit.
He says based on these changes, no taxi driver with an unlicensed vehicle should be given a ticket.
That's the law, and yet nobody can do about it, and they can't book my drivers or nothing. But I just want to make sure that in their head, and my drivers don't have nothing to be not the fear. Because June, they have until June, the end of June 29th up to the end of August. They will leave an extension.
And with the Prime Minister recently announcing that commercial travel to and from the country may resume on or before July 1st, the union president says they are looking forward to the return of visitors and assures that they are prepared
to live up to all the necessary requirements, such as safety. We understand that health and safety is very important to our borders, so be prepared to do the necessary measures, live up to the necessary measures that we required, such as social distancing, also wearing your mask, washing your hands frequently, and even sanitizing our cars after every fill.
Italia Hall, ZNS Network News.
Medical professionals around the world have been consistently reporting that the elderly persons are the most susceptible to contracting the COVID-19 virus. However, here in the Bahamas, it seems as though that sector of the population is amongst the minority. Tonight, a family medicine specialist shares her advice on continuing to protect these precious pearls. Family medicine specialist Dr. Janice Edwards-Rollins says that she has been sharing a four-pronged approach plan to her elderly patients when it comes to protecting themselves against contracting the novel coronavirus. She says this plan includes taking precautions to reduce their risk of being infected, doing their part to maintain physical health, keeping up their mental health, and also having a plan.
I advise that they wash their hands as frequently as possible, ideally with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, that they avoid putting their hands close to their face if they can, that wherever possible they avoid going out into the public and being in crowds, avoid sick people as well. In terms of their physical health, I will hope that all of my patients will take their medicines as prescribed, that they will try to adhere to a healthy diet, which is rich in fresh fruits and vegetables, try to avoid processed foods. I also want to encourage everyone to consider their emotional health. To whatever extent possible, they should limit the amount of upsetting news that they watch or listen to. I encourage everyone to pray and to connect, because physical distancing doesn't mean social isolation. It's so important if you can stay connected to your loved ones, to your neighbors, and that can be through the phone, through Skype, or whichever medium is good for you. And finally, I want to encourage the elderly and everyone to have a plan. It would be important to identify someone you can turn to if you need help. Someone who, for example, can bring you supplies if you're unable to go out and get your food, your medicines, your water yourself.
Now, if you are responsible for caring for the elderly, she says that you too must practice proper hygiene.
Well, if your hands are clean, you can disinfect with a hand sanitizer, which ideally should be more than 60% alcohol. Frequently touched surfaces should be cleaned with either a 70% alcohol solution or making a bleach water solution, which should be about 1/3 of a cup of bleach to a gallon of water. And you should do that cleaning any surface that's frequently touched. That could be the doorknob, faucets, desks, and even our handheld devices ought to be cleaned thoroughly. It's important that if you're sick, you stay away from the elderly, because as we know, they are at greater risk for severe infection and COVID-19. Also, I would recommend, if possible, that you wear a face mask when around the elderly.
Dr. Edwards-Rollins adds that it is also important to have the number of your physician on hand, as well as that of the COVID-19 hotline.
727-0140 or 815-1667. That would be the 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. shift. And we have an 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. shift, and that would be 727-0401 or 806-3550.
She says she commends the population of the Bahamas for these relatively low numbers amongst the elderly population. She says she believes that this is an indication of residents adhering to the advice of medical professionals. You're watching the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Don't go away.
The Hardware Center, located on the Fishing Hole Road, presents their 2020 Hurricane Preparedness Checklist. Tip 3, First Aid.
Look, it's simple. Fidelity can consolidate all your bills for their debt consolidation loan. Give you one monthly payment and money in your pocket.
So let me get this straight, Miss Financial Coach. You say something about cash in my pocket?
Yes.
And a savings plan with 5% interest? Wow, finally! A bank that's looking out for me. What you want me to sign?
That's not all. We also offer competitive interest rates and free financial coaching.
That's Fidelity. You ain't hear me? Well, Do my sign.
The Hardware Center, located on the Fishing Hole Road, presents their 2020 Hurricane Preparedness Checklist. Tip: your #1 news team covering the North. The Bahamas Tonight, Northern Edition.
And that's going to do it for us here in the North, but be sure to stay tuned as the Bahamas Tonight continues. On behalf of the entire news team here in the North, I'm Megan Shepard. Have a wonderful evening.